May I now call upon Mr. William Gilbert to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Nick definitely wanted to be here, and we have a unique circumstance where both Nick and I have degrees in literature, and so this conference has a particular emotional appeal to us. My background is that joined the U.S. Air Force out of Boston University, where I studied business management. I lived in 5 different Latin American countries, both in and out of the military. I lived in Spain, well, that's not Latin America, but I lived in Spain, Mexico, Venezuela, Panama, Nicaragua. Left the Air Force, went and got a degree in Latin American literature at Boston College, and then taught in prep schools for 15 years before joining the Foreign Service. So I am not a writer myself. Nick, who couldn't be here today, is a writer. Brilliant individual. I'm very privileged to serve him, and so but I have always had a love for literature, and to kind of piggyback on Kirpal's statement about how sometimes literature can flourish under challenging circumstances, it reminds me a lot of the first novelist ever, who was Miguel de Cervantes, who wrote the Quixote under probably some of the worst censorship conditions in human history, led by the Inquisition in Spain. And he turned the whole thing around with Don Quixote, poking fun at things in such a brilliant way where he kind of got under the radar of the censors and appealed to their vanities and flatteries at the same time invented an entire genre. I'm a big fan of literature, and I'm extraordinarily happy to be here in this country at this time, because I think this country at this time, heading into its 50th year, holds great promise for the arts, because it's a country that has paid its dues and has set an example for the entire world as a nation that came about with almost no natural resources, a tiny little country surrounded by large neighbors, and they built a powerful nation, a vibrant nation based on education, on the value of education. And they've worked hard for 50 years, and now they've come of age and are starting to look at some of their aesthetic capabilities. And it's an exciting time to be here. It's also an exciting time for me because Ambassador Kirk Wagner is the United States ambassador to Singapore right now, and he is, in a word, and just one word, he's inspirational. He's an inspirational individual. I know he supports this conference, and he supports the arts in general. We are trying to do outreach via the U.S. Embassy to youth. We're trying to do Muslim outreach. We're trying to do outreach to young women, but not just in Singapore, but via Singapore to the entire Southeast Asian region. So it's a pleasure to be here. They're exciting times, and we supported the conference this year. We intend to support it again next year, especially during the 50th anniversary and for many years out to come. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak, and I'm really interested to hear what everybody has to say here at the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. As Singapore matures and moves forward, I think the reception of literary works is becoming more and more so happy and positive. But I know I see a few of my own students here. I think I did tell you the story, but just for the edification of those who may not know this, I want to say that Singapore is known for taking literature very seriously. When I was growing up, and when I was like the age of most of you in the room, I was quite astonished to read in the newspapers that the police had found written on a tombstone in the Choa Chu Kang Cemetery, all right, a poem that was in some ways deemed to be subversive. And so the writer of that poem, the brother of the deceased, who was buried there, was brought to court and subsequently given a punishment, both of jail as well as fine. This is in the sort of, history of Singapore poetry a little, all right? It got taken so seriously that people found the poem out. And the idea was that the poem somehow insinuated that Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, our then Prime Minister, had in some ways made the young man meet his end. Now, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew is known not to, receive any kind of insinuation that is negative too comfortably. And so, the authorities got onto the poet only to find. Now, but that was also a lesson for both sides, because I think the government also learned that it is no point trying to be over-eager in trying to demolish somebody's emotional outpouring of grief and sadness and sorrow. And while the attribution may be a little bit problematic or complex, or, they didn't think it was complex. They thought it was very clear Lee Kuan Yew and his authority was being damned. But other people who read the poem said that it was only hinted, even just vaguely, that maybe the state could have done better by the deceased than, way taking to task for things that it was doing. So anyway, cut a long story short, that is a little bit of the kind of background. We haven't always been this thing, but as I also tell my students, in some countries, writers are not taken seriously at all. And they're very envious. They do want to be taken seriously by authorities and by government. They want to be noticed and recognized. So anyway, that's it. The subject of our keynote today is one that I've been particularly concerned with and about for a long, long time. And it's something that we keep on debating, what is literature for? Literature acts as memory and document, etc., etc. But one of the things I thought we might ask our guests to address is the idea of literature serving in terms of healing. The world is in need of a lot of healing, whether at the personal level or at the larger levels. And only sort of those of us who are directly involved would know the pain and the sorrow and the intensity with which literature can both arouse these emotions in a negative kind of way. But I think 70% of the time, literature serves to heal and to help us move forward. So may I, on all your behalfs, call upon Nathalie Handal, all the way from New York, to talk to us about literature as goodwill, the power of words to heal. Nathalie.